all in here today. So I want to tell you about a little boy. His name is Jose, and he went to his first American baseball game on July 4th. And he was a bit surprised when before the game, he started to see this massive crowd rise to their feet, and they were going to start singing. And he was standing there in the midst of all of these people that were so tall, and he was like, how am I gonna see the game? Well, as soon as they stood and they faced the flag and they began to sing, Jose was put at ease. He felt so much better, and he thought, my goodness, how welcoming these people are, and their concern for him touched his heart so deeply when all of them at the same time sang to him, Jose, can you see? It was great because I could see some getting it, like, oh yeah, I know where that's going. Okay, so I'm going to invite us to share this together. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So first, let's look at our right to life. You know, Jesus said, I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. And when we look at what Jesus did, he was constantly helping people to rise to a higher place in their life. And of course, you know, a lot of that had to do with healing, right? Moving beyond the physical afflictions that don't offer us maybe the greatest quality of experience of life. But just in general, by teaching us about forgiveness and by teaching us about love, about teaching us about so many things, he really did come that we may have this life experience and have it abundantly. And for me personally, when I look at certain inalienable rights, I certainly feel that every person has the right to the basic necessities of life. And I think that we all have the right to have a life that is filled with love and filled with truth and filled with kindness and compassion and connection, that is filled with wholeness, that is filled with abundance, that is filled, and a life that we are present to, and that we immerse ourselves in the experiences of life, that we don't try to resist the experiences of life, but rather that we embrace the experiences of life. And then we have the right to liberty. Now, Webster defines liberty as the condition of being free from confinement, servitude, or forced labor, the condition of being free from oppressive restriction or control by a government or other power, a right to engage in certain actions without control or interference by a government or other power. I'm not going to go into this today with the exception of ultimately talking about how do we navigate through these times when there is a real concern about important freedoms that could be taken away from the people that we love. So how do we navigate through these times? But really what I want to focus on with freedom is from John 8:32, and I think you probably all know this, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, or shall set you free. Set you free. And so I'm going to invite us to say, I know the truth, and the truth sets me free. Together, I know the truth, and the truth sets me free. So let's see what Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, says about freedom. He says, freedom is the quality or state of being without thought of restraints, bondage, or repression, having a sense of complete well-being. It is a result of regulating one's life according to principle, not according to what anyone else may think or say. Wow. That's pretty big, because I'm going to tell you, we don't even realize how much we live our lives according to what others think or say. And waking up to that and realizing that and shifting that changes our entire life experience. He goes on to say we can never know the full meaning of freedom until we abide in the Christ consciousness. And, in that second song that we sang, it talked about that, when all of us rise up to living from the Christ consciousness. Without prayer and spiritual meditation, there can be no concept of spiritual freedom and therefore no demonstration of it. Liberation from bondage comes as we seek first the perfect mind of God. Now, in Buddhism, they talk about 4 noble truths, and what they talk about is suffering. Has anybody here ever suffered? A lot of you haven't suffered? That's amazing. I know that we've all been through experiences of suffering. When we're in a place of suffering, do we feel free? Absolutely not. We feel anything but free. And so there are 4 noble truths. Number 1 is life is suffering. Number 2 is the cause of suffering is our own grasping and clinging, our attachments to our desires. Number 3, cessation of suffering is possible. And number 4, presentation of the Eightfold Path leads to the end of suffering and promotes well-being, which ultimately this Eightfold Path leads us to understanding it's all in our mind. And when we take steps to align our mind with the greater mind, that is when we can truly move beyond suffering. And we can, truly move beyond that. And H. Emily Cady, who wrote the book that we use in Unity called Lessons in Truth, says somewhere on his journey, the human consciousness or intellect comes to a place where it gladly bows to its spiritual self and confesses that this spiritual self, its Christ, is highest and is Lord. There is in your own indwelling, Lord, all of the life and health. So hear this one. There is in your own indwelling, Lord, inside of you, inside of every single one of us at every moment, it's never not there, is all of the life and health, all of the strength and peace and joy, all the wisdom and support that you can ever need or desire. No one can give to you as the indwelling Father. And you don't even have to go along with saying the Christ or the indwelling Father. It's that presence that we know, whatever you want to call it. It is something that is inside of us, that it's immanent and transcendent, but we know that it's very real. She goes on to say, all joy and strength and good spring up from a fountain within one's own being. And if we only knew this truth, we should know that because God in us is the fountain, out of which springs all our good. Nothing that anyone does or says or fails to do or say can take away our joy and good. Now, doesn't that feel good to think that that is where we can be? And the thing is what I want you to know, that is where we can be. That is where we can live from. Where Scripture says, nothing can truly disturb the calm peace of my soul. Have you ever had the experience when you're in the midst of something crazy where you've had this peace that passes all understanding? And it's so odd because it's not a situation in which you think you should be feeling this peace. Have you guys ever experienced that? It's amazing. It's an amazing experience. And the thing is this is where we can be most of the time. But it's going to take some effort for us to be there, but it's totally worth the effort. Okay, and then the pursuit of happiness. Webster defines happiness as feeling or showing pleasure or contentment. Synonyms are lighthearted, cheerful, joyful, contented, untroubled. How many of us like being happy? Yes, we like it, don't we? It feels really good to be happy, doesn't it? And don't you want to be happy more of the time? Don't you want to live from that inner place of joy where that happiness springs out of that more of the time that we exist on this planet? Yes. Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, in our culture, the pursuit of happiness is defined by, in a big way, by acquisition. The next new whatever. The next house, car, phone, computer, game, shoes, promotion, medication, etc. We are bombarded with what is the next thing that is going to make us happy, right? And I'm not saying that those things aren't okay for us to have. There's a difference between thinking that that's what's going to bring us lasting happiness and continuing to seek that and finding that that is never what truly brings us lasting happiness, right? Paul and I had the opportunity to go see Mr. Rogers, the documentary on Mr. Rogers, which was so beautiful. Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, he was such a beautiful soul. And this man truly was who he expressed himself to be. He was an energy of pure love. And he cared so much about the children. And he saw early on, this is back in the mid-60s, that our children were already being programmed with what is the next best thing for them to have in order to make them happy. And boy, can we see that today? On commercials, on everything that we look at, it's what's the next best thing to have. And the opportunity that we have is really to help our children understand that's not what brings you happiness. That's not what's gonna fulfill you in your life. I like the scripture where it says, all these things will be, seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. But then they are no longer the source of our happiness. When we seek first God, we seek first the kingdom, we seek first the qualities of God, then all these things that are added unto us is just like, wow, that's really great. But we're not so tied to, if we lose them, if we don't have them, we're not going to be devastated by that. Okay, and how about body image? I think that, the pursuit of happiness also has to do with body image. I was going through Facebook the other day, and I came across this Facebook post, and it was women's rear ends. And it was so interesting because it was I'm just going to say a rear end cream to plump your rear end up. And like we were cracking up about this. Oh, that was, I did not mean that. We were laughing about this. I know, I didn't mean that. Okay, we were laughing about this. And the thing is, the thing is that, for me, it was just this thing of how we get so caught up in what we look like and in trying to look a certain way because we think that if we look a certain way, we're going to be accepted. And how really ridiculous that is, because everybody has different ideas of what beauty is, of what that is. And so the idea here is to bring us more back into our own authentic self. Our mission statement is that we are here to be our authentic selves. And I'm not saying that if you want to use these things or whatever, that that's bad. But what I am saying is find that place within yourself first in which you love yourself. You love your complete self. And you're not worried about what other people think. So Reverend David Alt is a minister with Centers for Spiritual Living, and he was up at the conference that we were at, and he wrote a book called The Grass is Greener Right Where You Are. And of course, that's a beautiful concept, isn't it? And he shares about this trip that he took to Cambodia. And, in Cambodia, they deal with such incredible poverty. And it just really struck me because he was talking about this house, which is not a house. It's nothing that these people live in, and that there were like 3 or 4 or 5 kids, I can't remember, but the oldest one was 12, and she had to stay home and take care of the other siblings because her grandmother and her mother had to work. And one of the younger siblings was disabled, and he said the thing about it was, here's all these little kids in this place that is, really just dirt, and their bellies are distended, they're not getting the right nutrition, but they were giggling, and they were laughing, and they were in the present moment, and they were happy. And it really struck me, because I know why he was saying this, that we have a tendency, because we've been culturally programmed, to think the grass is greener in somebody else's life. Somebody else has it better than I do. And what he is saying is that no matter where we are living in this country, our grass is way greener than where other people are, and yet they can be happy and they can be joyful. That's a huge thing, isn't it? To really take a look at for ourselves what we're basing our happiness on. So I believe that our greatest goal is freedom. I think all of us want to feel free, yes, We don't like it when we're confined. We want to be free and to live the life we desire, and we want to be happy. Paul's doing a class on Sunday mornings based on the book by the Dalai Lama called The Art of Happiness, and the Dalai Lama says, the very purpose of our life is to seek happiness. He believes that happiness can be achieved through training the mind. So, how do we navigate? How do we pursue happiness, life, and liberty? How do we navigate through these times, especially these times in our country where there is so much division, where there's so much political craziness? How do we navigate through the experiences of our own lives, where sometimes things are just really hard in our lives? And so I came up with an acronym for FREE, and it is faith, relax, envision, and expand. So the first place that we go every time, you guys, the first place is we lean into our faith. Every week we say, there is only one presence and one power in our lives, in the new universe, God the good, omnipotent. And so I ask, when we say that, are we saying it rotely? Are we really realizing what that means? That no matter what is happening in our personal lives, in our country, in the world, God is in the midst of it. And you know what that means? Good is in the midst of it. And so it gives us the opportunity to look and say, where is good maybe expressing in this? I know for myself, when I look at this whole political thing going on and the divide, what I see that is so good is that people are waking up. People are rising up. People are becoming educated. They're becoming more involved. They're standing for their values. And what I've also seen is we have a greater diversity of people who are not only running for office, but they are actually being voted into office. And that's a great thing, you guys. That's a great thing. It's motivating us, isn't it? And that's a good thing. And so we can trust that even in the chaos, that harmony will come out of it, because it always does. It always does. And so from this place of leaning into our faith, we move into relaxing. And what this is for me is this is moving into this time apart. This is where meditation comes in. And here's what I want to say to you. If you aren't spending time in meditation, if you aren't taking some time to go apart, you are missing so much. Because it is when we take this time to stop the craziness of our minds and we move into, and you know, in the meditation today, it was that movement into our heart space. It was that movement away from the outer world. We can close our eyes to the outer world. We're not burying our head in the sand. That's not what this is about. But we're going first to God. And we're taking that time to just be and to allow whatever this presence is to express itself. Now, here's the thing for me about meditation. Because, you know, you can try starting with like 5 minutes, but here's what I find. 5 minutes is about the time it takes for my monkey mind to finally start to settle down. So I would encourage you to give it at least 10 minutes and then, you know, kind of expand it from there. When I go into meditation, one of the things I love the song, the greatest thing in all my life is knowing you, the greatest thing in all my life is loving you, the greatest thing in all my life is serving you, because you know what? I want to know God. I want to feel God. I want to love from that place of Godness, and I want to serve. I want to be that expression, and I want to serve humanity from my Godness. And I can't do that just from my human mind, because my human mind wants to take me so many other places. So when I take that time to go apart and just allow myself to go into the silence and get to that place, there comes a point when finally it just kind of clicks and you're in a zone. Now, here's the thing about this, is that I don't always necessarily feel the presence in those moments. I don't always get an answer in those moments, although I will tell you most of the time, if I have something on my mind, I do get an answer, but in those moments, I don't always in those moments, but it always comes. And it always comes at the right time. And what I find is I'm so much more centered in life itself when I take the time to be with that presence. And there have been some moments when I've been in meditation when I feel like, man, I've touched the hem of the garment. And it's that moment where it's like, oh my gosh, and you know it. This is one of the most important things that you can do, is to take this time apart. And then from this relaxation, from this movement into spirit, into the greater realm, into touching into love and beauty and joy, intelligence, and touching into pure substance, and knowing it's just teeming with possibilities and potentiality, we move to envisioning. And this is just as important, you guys, because I don't know about you, but I am guilty of envisioning some pretty not so good things, because my mind gets taken by media. And what I know is that I'm part of that creation when I stay there. And so when we go into this relaxation, we're in this place, guess what you have? How many of us have an imagination? We all have an imagination, right? It's one of our 12 powers. And guess what? I don't know if you knew this or not, but you are supposed to have control over your imagination. Did you know that? We are. We've been given that gift of dominion over our mind, over our thoughts. And so from this place, when we're in that realm of love and beauty and goodness and joy, we envision. How about if we envision that everybody is enlightened? Imagine if your family, all your family, was enlightened. Imagine if your neighbors are enlightened. Imagine if all the people that are driving are enlightened. Imagine if everybody in the grocery store or the mall is enlightened. Imagine if our local leaders, if our leaders of our country, the leaders of the world, if they're enlightened. Can you imagine that? Would that be awesome? And we were working together, truly a world that works for all. We were cooperating. We were seeing each other. We were connecting. We were acknowledging. And no one is left out. That's envisioning. And I got to tell you, it is so important for us to do this, because this is part of the creation. We are made in the image and likeness of God. God is creator. We are creators, and we are creating with our consciousness, with what we're focused on, with our energy, our vibration. And so we want to bring more of this vibration in, right? And then we move to express. And express is a couple things. You know, from this place, we move into action. Because I'm not saying that just because I'm in this centered place doesn't mean I'm not going to stand for what I value, for what my morals are. I'm gonna stand for these things, but I'm going to first go through the process so that I'm not it's just a trigger reaction. I'm going to go inward, envision, and then be inspired to action. Inspired is in spirit, a spiritual push, a spiritual pull. The other aspect of express is to express gratitude. And I'm going to tell you that expressing gratitude and appreciation will move you it will shift you so quickly into a more expansive space. Now, sometimes when we're in the midst of something that's really hard, it's hard for us to express gratitude for whatever's going on. We maybe can't find something. It doesn't matter. You don't have to express gratitude right there. There's a lot of stuff for us to be grateful for, yes? We have incredible blessings around us all the time. Life itself, how our bodies are functioning, that we have a home, that we have air conditioning, that we have vehicles, that we wake up in a warm bed or a cool bed, that we have a beautiful meditation garden, whatever it is. Just go into, and Abraham calls it a rampage of appreciation, because the idea is to keep us in an expansive energy. And when we express gratitude, and express gratitude to people, really tell them how grateful you are for them. Tell them why you're grateful for them. but to really move. So your homework this week is to be free, to move into faith, lean into faith, to take time apart. Oh, if there's any one thing I want to encourage you to do, is to take time apart and just be still and know God. To move into envisioning, imagining what this world can be, and then moving into expression, action, and appreciation. And I'm telling you, it will change you. It will change you. But that's how we change the world, isn't it? One person at a time. One person at a time. So I'm going to invite us to share. We're going to close with this affirmation if you would like to join me. Together.